Digimon All-Star Rumble!
Hello everyone, and as the man said, welcome to Digimon All-Star Rumble, an action-adventure beat-em-up fighting game. We'll be playing through story mode as Shoutmon, because I like Shoutmon. So, in this game, notably, all the characters' voices and personalities are based on their English dub counterparts, and that's because this game was made for America, and exclusively for English-speaking territories. Japan actually did not get this game at all, and even if you were Japanese and tried to import it, there's no Japanese language option. This game is for dubbed Digimon, and for countries that got versions based on the English dubbed Digimon. The main gameplay is a sort of very simple 3D platformer and slightly nuanced beat-em-up. There are some interesting facets to the beat-em-up mechanics, but it's a very old style of beat-em-up, like, think old, like Streets of Rage kind of old, that kind of simple. So that's not to say there's no strategy, but you shouldn't expect too much. It is also for children, even if it's a little bit on the difficult side toward the end. But this first level is the tutorial level, and as such, these Shell Numamon, complete pushovers. We have a primary fast attack with square, a secondary alternate attack with circle, and we have our special move with triangle. Our special move just being the ability to throw a fiery fastball, which is a very basic projectile, like that. Doesn't go very far. Now, this game is by no means a button masher. The first few stages will give you the impression that it's a button masher, but I promise it's not. And hopefully it's short enough, being about an hour in length, if you're not rushing, that you'll stick around to see that it's not a button masher. Height differences rarely come up like this, but when they do, they're kind of important. Height differences during combat, height differences outside of combat don't mean anything because the 3D platforming, unlike the beat-em-up combat, does not really have any nuance to it or any design to speak of. It's very basic pathfinding stuff. The game is incredibly linear. Gets a little bit less linear as it goes on, but just a little bit. Anyway, we're about to come across our first boss battle against Tentomon. As I said, personalities, mannerisms, dialogue, all based on the English dub version. I can't help but read that in Tentomon's voice, even if his voice actor isn't actually saying it. So, you've seen Power Stone, you've seen Super Smash Bros. This is like that, but more combo-focused. Generally, you want to get your most powerful combos out while your opponent is vulnerable or facing away from you, and that's basically the focus with some exceptions. Now, each character has their own strengths and weaknesses. A particular weakness of Shoutmon is that his projectiles are absolute garbage, and he does not have too many anti-air options. We just picked up a power-up that lets us turn our opponent into Numamon if we hit them. And when you're Numamon, you're basically just helpless. You can throw poop, but the chances of you actually hitting someone while throwing poop, very minimal. There's a meter next to our health bar that fills up, and when that fills up all the way, we can Digivolve. It fills up whenever we hit someone. And Tentomon's just filled up as well, as you can see. This power-up shoots lightning. We shot lightning, but it didn't do a whole lot because you don't take any significant knockback while you're in your Digivolve form. Your Digivolve form only lasts for a very, very small amount of time. It's more beneficial to not use Shoutmon's projectile attacks. Generally, you want to stick to his really fast close-range attacks, because not only are his combos really damaging and they have really high hit counts, but any SP you use on your projectile attacks is SP you don't have when you want to teleport behind the enemy while they're beating the tar out of you. Each Digivolution has a special attack of its own, like this, that fills up when you hit someone while you're in your Digivolve form. Anyway, I was talking about Shoutmon and how you should play Shoutmon. That green meter below our health is SP. You can spend the SP on things like Bellow Blaster, as I did just there, which is a projectile attack, or on Fiery Fastball. But a much more important use for SP is the ability to break out of an opponent's combo. You see, if you press the L1 button while you're being comboed, you will teleport behind your opponent like you're playing Dragon Ball Z or some shit. And because Shoutmon's attacks are so fast, the enemy generally does not have time to react if you teleport behind them, and then you can get a really good combo out. And getting a really, really good combo out of Shoutmon is way superior to spamming your really bad projectiles. So how you should play Shoutmon: make a really good use of his speedy melee attacks, because that's his defining feature, is how fast his melee attacks are. Make sure you save your SP for when your enemy is attacking you, and do not waste your SP on his crappy projectile attacks, unless you're in the beat-em-up segments where the projectiles are more useful. We didn't have much time to talk about Tentomon, sadly, but don't worry about that. This is more of a tutorial boss battle than anything. Scoring system is very similar to Smash Bros. So this game, yes, is noticeably low budget. You don't need to tell me the graphics don't look good. I know the graphics don't look good. I'm just glad they tried with what obviously little budget they had to make things look presentable. And I do appreciate the animations, the variety in Digimon, and how true the attacks are to the show. Also, Shoutmon gets his actual voice actor, which not everyone does. So here's our introduction to our first large Digimon. The large Digimon don't take knockback generally, and they either have a really far-reaching attack or an attack that hits them multiple times and is difficult to avoid for other reasons. In 8mon's case, he just has a club with a really, really long reach. He swings up in the air before he uses it, and that's your chance to move out of the way. And then you just hit him from behind or from the side, like this. There you go. Very simple large enemy. The other large enemies we'll see not nearly as easy to avoid, and we'll see more than one 8-mon at a time eventually, which of course makes it harder to avoid as well. But that's a good introduction to the large enemy types, the idea that they don't take knockback, and you have to move around them and attack them after they're done attacking. The beat-em-up and platforming sections of the game get longer as the game goes on, by the way. They're not usually this small. While the previous battle was more of a traditional Smash Bros. Scoring kind of deal, this is a stock kind of deal. Each player has 3 stock, and the first player to run out of stock loses. Basic fighting game stuff, really. So, something that wasn't discussed in the previous battle is that in Digivolutions, if your opponent is not also in their Digivolved state, then you have the upper hand, definitely, and you should chase them around and beat them down, or use one of your projectiles. Like, for example, after I'm done with this Whirlwind power-up and we transform into Omni Shoutmon, when you're transformed and your opponent isn't, do not hesitate in the slightest. Just chase them down and beat the shit out of them. Because you have the upper hand, you're not going to take any real knockback from their attacks, and they can only block so much before their block breaks. So, just wail on them. Fun thing is your combo even continues after you've lost your form. Or Biyomon never stood a chance. Now, on the other hand, if your opponent is Digivolved and you aren't, just run the fuck away. This is also another good reason to save your SP to teleport away from your enemy. Biyomon is a very gimmick-heavy character, so talking about what she does is a little difficult, so we'll worry about that later. But for now, you're seeing an... Oh, by the way, here's a very slow missile you can launch that chases your opponent steadily, and will blow up when it touches them, but it will disappear on its own eventually. Anyway, as I was saying, there's not a lot to say about Biyomon, but here you're seeing the strategy I was talking about in effect, where we're making a lot of use of Shoutmon's very fast combos, of which he has quite a few. Obviously, combos are done with a combination of the circle and square buttons. Really shouldn't have died there, that was totally avoidable. But, you know, I'm not perfect. Something good about Shoutmon is that almost all of his attacks hit in almost all situations. With a lot of characters, the opponent needs to be in a specific place for your attack to matter. But with Shoutmon, almost all of his attacks hit as long as your opponent is within range to be hit. One of his attacks is also a really great area of effect. One of his combos, rather.